Hey, family, welcome back to a new episode of Transformed and Renewed. This is your coach, Jerry Thomas Jr. We are back live. And before we get started, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on your screen. Depending on wherever you're streaming from, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. This keeps you engaged. That way, you're not missing any updates because if you do miss them, sometimes it could be important news, and the best way for you to not have FOMO, the fear of missing out, is for you to like and subscribe to the channel. Now, in the background, you may hear some thunder, so I may keep this quite brief, but I still wanted to cover this information. So hopefully, I try to cover as much. Hopefully, the power doesn't go out. But in this session, we're going to be talking about mental health. And this has been a topic, at least that I have come across and have heard about at least this month. Not sure if it is Mental Health Month in July, but I have heard more about it in terms of initiatives and just some research that I've done. More research, at least within when it comes to the workplace as well as at home. And so, as we go through this information, I'll share some brief research with you, but then we'll kind of go into some tips in terms of things that you may notice in terms of, you know what, I have been experiencing some form of stress. And so this is just going to briefly dive into that. This is not going to be a thorough discussion, but this is just going to get the foundation started. So when we think about stress, this can tend to be something that causes anguish or just tension but in the body. And so we think sometimes when we're stressed, a lot of times it's hard to measure stress, but then you can see the effects of it. You know, when your muscles start to get tightened in the body, they start to get stiff, or what happened to me was when I went to get a massage, the therapist noticed that there was a lot of tension in a certain area, muscle. And so sometimes we may not even be aware of it, may not even feel what someone else may feel, or even understand, what they could be feeling. But again, that's information, insight that can help us to really understand, you know what, I have been dealing with some stress, as well as thinking about other ways that stress can come about. Now, one thing when I actually started looking into this was exploring the workplace, because in the past, I think I've talked about mental health from a personal viewpoint. So at home, dealing with stress. But then when we think about the workplace, there is a lot of stress. There are so many factors that can uh, go into workplace stress. One can be when the employer does not have a solid wellness program, and sometimes the employees do not know where to reach out or who to contact, especially when they may have an issue or issues. And sometimes not having those resources can cause some stress because you feel strained. A lot of people do not want to come out of pocket, especially if they know that, hey, if the employer provided this resource, I would be more likely to buy it or invest into it. Another one is, people dealing with just the workload or even just the ebbs and flows of work. So sometimes you may work with people who can be difficult. Sometimes that can cause stress, or not getting what you are looking for at work, whether it's value recognition. At a point, you used to get a certain level of respect or even recognition, but currently things haven't gone that way. And it seems like what used to seem enjoyable has just become dull. And then when we think about it from a personal or at least at home standpoint, some things that can contribute to, not all the time, when it comes to mental health is dealing with the loss of a loved one, being on social media. That's a big one because for many people, scrolling, watching so many videos, and not really taking the time to realize that you're processing so much. Now, you may not realize it, but in your mind, it is just turning so quickly. and that's causing so much stress for many people. And so sometimes people may have issues in the body, may start to have issues in the gut related to a lot of their stress. And so there are so many reasons or so many things that can contribute to mental health. But at least here, I just want to cover some quick points. Again, if I have time, I may cover an article. But again, like I said, I wanted to at least be brief, just because it has been raining and storming pretty good here, or at least when I say pretty good, meaning that it has come down, not sparing anything that's flying outside at all. So let's dive into this information. So, when it comes to ways that at least we can start to prioritize mental health, I'm kind of going into some stats. So, at least from the workplace, was that there was a study back in 2024, so last year, where individuals were surveyed, and over 60% of those individuals reported chronic stress. Now, that's a high number. And I have to go back and look to see what the number of participants in that study was. I know it was fairly large, at least over 1,000, but I'm not sure what the actual number was. But 60%, over 60% reported chronic stress. Big number, okay? And then I think in another study, I saw that at least 1 in 5 Americans have reported chronic stress, okay? So, two different studies, and I think that there was slightly different questions or different sets of questions that were asked. And so, as we think about this, one of the ways that we can prioritize it is being able to foster stronger family relationships. One study shows that having a solid or robust family or social ties can actually reduce the mortality risk by 50%, because this also helps people, especially if they're lonely. Sometimes when you don't have someone to talk to, it can cause just a lot of stress, as well as your thoughts tend to get the best of you, especially if you're already thinking a certain way and you are the only person who is motivating you to continue to think the way that you are. And so it talks about social ties because, again, you get people who may not have the same viewpoint that you have, and they could present to you some information that can help you realize, hey, maybe I shouldn't think that way. Maybe what they're saying is valid. Another one was just having positive interactions with friends and relatives, especially because that helps with midlife cognitive decline. So, this is when you think about the brain, again, a lot of times, if you're not socializing with people, and you're not able to fellowship with people, for some people, you can experience a cognitive decline. So this is where the brain can start to deteriorate just from the lack of social interactions, because sometimes to interact with people releases certain good chemicals in the brain. But when you don't, you can have a lot of toxins that can also be at place. So something to keep in mind. Another one was just having some good boundaries when it comes between work and home. For some people, they like to take work home. Never good. It's never good because you never get used to just being able to allow your mind to focus on something aside from work. In America, for many people, it's work, work, work. I gotta work so hard because I'm trying to get this much money, because I don't want to be broke. I don't want to seem like I'm less than. I need to feel like I'm valued, because if I don't have enough money, I'm not valued. As well as if I don't have enough money, I can't pay for certain things, and I really want certain things. For some people, that's a mindset, and so with that, it becomes work is home. But it's important that you really have good measures in place to be anything that just separates work from personal. Okay. You have, typically, each American is going to work a third of the day. Okay. The rest of the time, 2/3 of that time you either at home doing whatever, and then the other third you're likely sleeping for about 8 hours roughly. Some people may not get that much, but ideally you're working for 8 hours and then you go to sleep for 8 hours roughly. And then the other 8 hours is up to you, whatever you're doing. So again, having good boundaries between work and home. Another one was being able to just have good work arrangements. And this means just being able to have a smooth commute. For some people, because you have to drive a pretty decent distance, so that could be 30 minutes. Some people, that could be too much. An hour can be too much for some people. Some people can actually drive over an hour to work. So you think about to and from work, that's roughly 2 hours. And if you are over that hour mark, then you're looking roughly at about an hour and a half. Excuse me. If you're over an hour, you're looking at about 2.5, maybe 3 hours, which is a chunk of time just to commute to and from work. Okay. So it's just being able to think about that, at least for me. I realized that, to commute to and from work, especially when you're dealing with traffic, that can also add a level of stress. Okay. So, what do you do to combat that? Do you listen to some good music? Do you listen to something that's going to be therapeutic? Because otherwise, you can just start to have so much just built up and it just causes you to just crash out. And we don't want you to crash out. So, again, it's important to have some good boundaries, being able to say, you know what, let me create a routine. So that way, if I have to deal with this, let it be at least the best way. So I'm not stressed out. Okay. There's several others, but again, these are just a few to set the foundation, especially when it comes to mental health. There are different fairs that come up during the fall time. And so if you ever felt like, hey, I've really been dealing with some issues, then I would recommend you attend some of those fairs, or even you can reach out to me, especially when it comes to mental health. It's so important. One thing I didn't talk about that's also important related to mental health is just depression, fear, even thoughts of suicide and people attempting suicide. That is something that has to change because people are valuable. And sometimes people don't realize how valuable they are because, again, going back to not having people that you can talk to can cause you to think certain thoughts and cause you to do things that are not wise to do. Now, you may feel like I'm better off, but again, that's you thinking that. And it's important that you get the help, you at least look at resources to avoid that, especially if you know that you have been considering those thoughts, as well as you do not have a lot of people that you talk to. So, again, it's important to get the resources. And again, if you need some resources, just reach out to me. If you enjoyed that information, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel at ROBODY 1212. Okay. Again, hit that like and subscribe button on your screen, as well as you can navigate to our website, robody.org. Click on that button if you want to set up a one-on-one consultation with myself. We will get started setting you up with a personalized plan so that you can get the results that you are looking for. And guess what? I'm going to guide you every step of the way. Okay. So if that is something that you've been thinking about, make sure you navigate to our website, robody.org. Click on that button. We can get set up and we're going to get you started on a personalized plan. As well as if you work for a company or you own a company or you go to church, let them know or let me know that I have a free complimentary session. So, free or complimentary session is still going to be free, where I just basically invest in the employees or just the church with a lot of tools, at least in this one session. And it's just going to be like a foundation starter when it comes to nutrition, mental health, stress, physical health, okay, as well as spiritual health. So, at least those four that we're going to discuss, or at least I'm going to discuss. And so, again, if you have a church, have a business that you work for, or even a business that you own, and you would like to improve just the workplace culture or just even just the church mindset on health, make sure you reach out to me. We can get that set up for a free, again, session, no cost to you. It's just me investing in the coworkers or the employees or the staff or even just your congregation. So if you want more information, just reach out to me. You can send me a direct message, or you can navigate to our website, or you can send me an email, jerry@robody.org. We can get it started. Okay. So again, if you enjoy that information, make sure you give us a like and subscribe, and feel free to share this video. Until next time, I will talk with you later.